Hello, my name is StuartThompson and I have been hired by Audible to improve user experience when users seek to return audiobook titles from their library. My hunch was that users are experiencing user flow issues relating to the returning of individual audiobook titles inside the application. I began my journey of solving this problem by doing desk research, and with a quick search I found that on Reddit a user had pondered the following. I then found the following when trying to return audiobooks in the app myself. Desk research was then coupled with a heuristic review. This resulted in the findings that there was no visibility of status, nor was there a match between system and the world, meaning operation on the website did not match the functionality of the application. My findings from this desk research concluded that Audible does not have a return title feature, and it's only available on their website, thus confirming my hunch that individuals were having user flow issues relating to the returning of individual titles of audiobooks via the app. I then began devising some user testing. My objectives were to understand how users use the return books feature on the website, understand how users will try and return books in the application if they could, and understand how they experience frustration and/or pain points. I did this by devising the following questions. The first question was, and I asked this to them, where would you initially go to return the books on the website and why? And then I'd ask, what did you find easy or difficult about the process? My next question was then, are the options available relevant, missing, or confusing? I'd then ask, where would you initially go to return books on the application and why? This allowed for elaboration, which was really important to my research. I then asked, what did you find easy or difficult about the process? And then I asked, are there any options available that are relevant, missing, or confusing? I then found out what were the main frustrations and pain points you experienced overall in the process. And then my last question was, do you have any suggestions that would improve your overall user experience? This was critical to my research. This was an interview-based user experience testing session that was done in accordance with privacy protocols to disseminate quantitative and qualitative research data from them. I then created an affinity map of the findings, whereby I grouped the correlating results together, and there was a lot of data points that were the same, and there were some that were outliers, which is to be expected. The main insight I garnered from this testing was that users had differing expectations on where to complete the book return task. However, they were in unison on the matter regarding the need and desire to be able to complete this task. The main quotes that were in unison that I got were, the first one, missing and confusing. And that the second one was that it wasn't a clear process and there was no clear option, and that it was hard for them to make it out. And the final quote was, I couldn't find the correct avenue and they were looking for something more specific. This overwhelmingly validated my hunch. I then began my ideation process using a Crazy 8 exercise, which I found very rewarding and stimulating, as I hypothesized a multitude of potential options for the user to achieve their goals. I ended up going with 2 overall, but I tried to make sure I got a wide plethora of individual type of screens that I could be able to access the return titles function from. This Crazy 8 exercise depicts 8 potential screens where a return book action button could be placed. I chose frame 2 and frame 4. Frame 2 because it was part of the existing framework, but it unfortunately led to a dead end, but I thought I could add a button to make it navigatable and clickable for the user. And frame 4, given the extent of the actions pre-existing in the selection menu and it being vaulted in the library section, giving it intuitive access and ease of selection, which is in the user and the stakeholders' needs. I then used a prioritization matrix, which solidified my views of frame 2 and frame 4, and I started off with the user, of course, and frame 2 used an existing portal with a new button prompt, and then frame 4 used a new feature in the library select drop-down menu. I wanted it to be able to be accessible to the user, basically, and then I needed it to be not too technical, so as to be able to code it within existing UI and UX frameworks. And And then this is what really stood out to me, was the business and stakeholder perspective. It needed to be able to not impact the revenue, as the feature was already available, but it just changes an unnecessary potential dark pattern that I may have uncovered, and I need to make sure that there is a limitation on how many times a book can be returned as per the current guidelines. So basically encouraging people to keep subscribing without turning over books too much, which I thought was really interesting. All the frames were theoretically not in the stakeholders' interest, as it allows too much ease, and it may also be in the user interest to not return too many books, because they might want to access the initial book that they purchased, in such as the beauty of hindsight. And then I made 2 low fidelity prototypes, which are as follows. These just outline the concept of frame 2 and frame 4 from earlier, where frame 2 was part of the initial framework where you go through the profile, where this frame 4 was as part of the select library function. I then conducted a round of low-fidelity prototype testing with the same group of initial users using the face-to-face interview method. I allowed them to evaluate my paper prototypes using A/B testing as well, where I showed one screen at a time to distinguish whether they thought it would take them a reasonable amount of time to complete the task, whether or not they thought they had the ability to complete the task, and it allowed me to see what their reactions were and what their insights were from the testing. And this was the results of my testing. Having then completed the testing, I synthesized the results using 3 methods. Using the A and B testing, where I gave the users a choice of which product they preferred the most, which was frame 4, aka A in the testing, and then I used the prioritization matrix of using stakeholder user outcomes, that being possible for the user to complete the task while not emphasizing and encouraging the user to return books. And then this was also like what I found the most validating result, other than the A and B testing, was seeing the behavioral patterns that the user used while completing results. And I saw that people were graceful, and they also completed the testing with ease on A, where they found it intuitive, whereas with B they were struggling a bit, and they were just a bit like, "Ooh, why did I go here?" sort of thing. Overall, I found the exercise to be extremely interesting, as it showed a clear distinction of what it means to be an UX designer for me, as in empathizing with the people and just seeing like the evident frustration and confusion, which was extremely evident in Test B, as well as the satisfaction of people interacting calmly and gracefully with the product in case A, even though both tests allowed the user to complete the said task as per the prioritization matrix that I formulated. So just seeing the people interact with it was just like, it was validating in that way. And then from that I extrapolated on it, and I made a medium fidelity prototype based on the A/B testing result A. What we have here is the main home screen. So if a user wants to go and return a title, they would go to the library, and then they would see the collection of titles that they have in the library, as well as a select menu, which appears next to the information on the title, and then they can select, and they'll also see a screen where they have a myriad of options, such as comment, like, share, which is very common, and then they have the return title function where you click, and then it comes to a screen where it has the information of the book and just a simple return button. And then they can click it, and then once it's been clicked, there is a information gathering service for the Audible developers, where you can see what's wrong with the title and why they want to return it, and then select it, and then you click return, and then it comes to a success page where people will then feel like they've achieved something.